basically we feel ourselves not therapists. We feel that we are teachers. And my expression of this is that we are not therapists under any circumstances, that it is the gravitational field that is the therapist. What we do is to prepare the body to receive the support from the gravitational field, which gives the greater sense of well-being that you have heard expressed among these people whom you have been questioning.
And he touched certain spots on my body. At one point, he felt that it was just too tender and he couldn't work there, and I couldn't take it working there. And it wasn't a physical pain, it was an emotional pain. And the third Rolfing, he went to that spot again. And the most unusual thing I felt at that time is that I had an odor of sulfur that just filled the air as he touched a part of me. And I had a flashback of sulfur packs being put on my back from an illness as I was a child. And it released a lot of emotional pain that I had gone through when I was 10 and freed me from it.
Serious traumatic episodes also leave their mark. And later in life, a person goes to a psychotherapist of some sort, expecting to get those dug out. But actually, those very serious traumatic episodes are anchored literally in the flesh of the body. And until the flesh of the body is freed so that it can move appropriately to the pattern, the traumatic episode cannot really be erased from that body, forgotten. It's not possible. For example, I remember a young man who, after not 10 but 20 hours of work in Rolfing, was still showing such a peculiar pattern around his chin and throat. And I started working on him, and he burst into tears, and he begged me to stop. He could smell the water, he could taste the water. And actually what he was tasting and smelling was the reliving of an episode in which, as a 3 or 4-year-old child, he had literally drowned, been fished out of the lake, given respiratory assistance and so forth, and eventually brought around again. But the child actually had apparently died at that point. And now, he's now 40 years old instead of 4 years old, and he's reliving this episode and tasting the water as it's pumped out from those lungs.
From the very first session, I felt like a sudden calmness had come all over me. I could think deeply, my thought was like penetrating, and as I got off session after session, I could experience a day-to-day growth, a day-to-day release of tension, a day-to-day release of anger, things that I've never been able to do before. It's, the feeling is like, well, now that child which was stifling inside of you has been allowed to grow. And since that day, I've been maturing in a way that I could hardly understand. It's like, I always felt like a child, and now I'm feeling like a man.
To me, personality is not a mental thing, but to me, personality expresses a two-sided coin, on one side is the physical and one side is the mental. And a serious change in either one will most certainly result in a serious change in the other.
Well, I think I'm the only one in the group whose children have been done. The youngest one is a boy. He was far more emotional than any of the children. And after he had a particularly traumatic session in Rolfing, the next day he came home and he was joyful and happy and free and running. And, you know, it was like everything had been released all at the same time.
Always people are innovators by virtue of the fact that they have come up against a problem to which there is no answer in the accepted field, in the conventional field, and so they set about trying to find out what is the answer, what can give them a help with their problem. I had a child who had certain problems that I couldn't find help for in the accepted feeling. And so I started looking around trying to find out what were the elements in this child's problem which could be changed. Because always you have to change your premise in order to get a different conclusion.